guys, Prowl1701 here, and today I'm going to be ranking the Big Finish stories that I've heard. I was about to say seen, but that wouldn't have sounded right. That I've heard. Now, I haven't heard a lot of Big Finish. Matter of fact, if I'm remembering all of the ones I've heard, I've listened to 12 of them so far. 4 of which come from The Last Adventure, which is right out of here, out of camera range. I am going to do this separately, as they're kind of separate stories that tie together with a almost seasonal arc. Some are better than others. Some of them I really like. Some of them I really don't. I think I've covered all of them. I was sitting there trying to wrap my brains if I could remember all of the ones I'd listened to. But we're going to look at the 12 stories I've listened to. I'm going to rank them, and then I look forward to hearing your thoughts on these stories, or maybe some others I should check out down in the comments below. At the bottom in 12th place, and probably the most disappointing one because it's very popular, is Spare Parts. I just don't get into Spare Parts. It just does nothing for me. I barely made it through it. I bought it digitally. They had it on sale for like $3, I think, on the Big Finish website. And I'd always heard about how good Spare Parts is. And I just didn't get into it. I mean, the performances are fine, although I get tired of hearing the Mondasian cyber voice. I love the Mondasian cyber voices, but just in audio form, they get annoying over time, especially the little collective consciousness when it's talking, and I can barely make it out. I don't know. I was just really bored with this one before I even got all the way through it. I did listen to all of it, but it's easily one of the most disappointing pieces of Doctor Who I've ever experienced. I just didn't really care for it. It's the only one on this list I'm pretty sure I will never listen to again. And I own it, and I will probably never listen to it again. The next one, I believe, was The Light at the End. Is that right? It's the one they did for the 50th anniversary that had several doctors in it. The 4th Doctor even gets to interact with the 8th Doctor. They all end up on this island-like deal. It's a trap by the Master. Then there's this one guy's house this is all happening at. I think the Doctor ends up in a tree or on his roof. And his family's been turned into dolls. Is that The Light at the End? I didn't really like it. I didn't really like this one. It was alright, and I liked how 4 and 8 interacted. The performances were fine. Once again, I found myself drifting. And this one's supposed to be pretty good. I have a physical copy of this somewhere. Someone sent me this. Actually, 2 people were going to, and both of them were having trouble with it, and I got my copy from one of them and quickly told the other one, don't worry about it, I got it. And I very much appreciate people, whoever it was that sent it, and whoever it was that was going to send it. I always appreciate when people send stuff. But I didn't get into this one. I found it disappointing. Now, this one, unlike Spare Parts, I could see myself giving it another chance. It intrigued me enough to where I could see myself picking it up, giving it a listen maybe in another couple years, giving it another listen to, because it wasn't all bad. It just didn't really engage me. I got to find I've actually been digging around in my closet trying to find all of my Big Finish stuff. I've got my Unit Dominion right down here, and then I've got my Last Adventure right down here, but I need to find my others and get them put out. Yeah, this one just, again, it's really hard to explain. Having listened to all of these only once, they're not as fresh on my mind because you guys know my memory's not that good. But I remember I didn't really engage with it, even though it was nice hearing all of the Doctors. Although I'm also starting to think multi-Doctor stories in Big Finish are a little overdone at this point. Next on the list is Unit Dominion. That one I do have right here. This was sent to me by one of my subscribers. And it's okay. It's okay. It's really weird. It's really out there with these giant floating baby heads. It's weird. But it definitely lets you picture what's going on in your head and really gets your imagination going there. I really like Alex McQueen as the other Doctor a lot. He's actually my favorite part of the story. His voice is really cool. His voice kind of is like a mix between McGann's and Colin Baker's somehow. But I really like his performance in this. Really sells it. McCoy is great. I like Klein as a character, and the actress is doing good with her. So much so I really want to hear that Klein trilogy at some point. That's one of the things I think I've mentioned before on here that I'm interested in, is the Klein trilogy. Because this really got me interested in her character. It's nice having Rain. Is that the name of the companion in this? I'm not really familiar with her, but she's interesting in it. Some of the stuff happening in the other dimensions is pretty neat. The mind leeches were really cool. Part 1 was really good. Part 2 didn't do much for me. And after part 2, I took a long break, like a 2-year break from this story. And then I came back recently and listened to parts 3 and 4, which were better, which picked up. I feel like the ending's a little Deus Ex Machina, but I kind of like the fact that it's really just the Master making one little slip that enabled McCoy to kind of convince this other guy, hey, you need to be helping me. He's lying to you. So I kind of like that in a way. It's okay. I like it. I can see myself revisiting it again at some point. Next on the list is The Brink of Death, which is, of course, is the concluding part of the last adventure. Now we're into stories I like, really like. The Brink of Death is good. It's my least favorite part of the last adventure, which is actually 4 stories, but it is nice. It's a little, hey? There's a little going on in there with the Master replacing the Doctor and the Doctor having to change history. And I really like the one companion that's kind of running around with him, although I don't really like what happens to her. I really wish it hadn't done that, but I liked her. She's a cool companion. It's a good story. It's just a little... I need some visual aids here for this one. It's a little out there, and it's interesting because my opinion of the stories in the last adventure pretty much decrease as they go, with the 4th one being my least favorite and the 1st one being my favorite. We'll get to that. And this one's still good. It was just not quite as good as the 3 that came before it. Next on the list is Stage Fright. I don't remember this one that well. Like, I remember bits of it with actors playing the parts of previous companions because the Valiard is setting up a trap for the Doctor. But this one's very vague in my head. It's the most vague of the 4 stories. And I remember enjoying it, but also thinking, isn't this a little complicated? I mean, obviously the Valiard is setting stuff up for the Brink of Death, but it seems a little overly complicated. But I remember the story was well written and well performed, and it just kind of falls here. Next one on the list is part 2 of the last adventure, so we're just kind of dealing with these in reverse order almost. Stage Fright. I like Stage Fright, the one with the werewolves, but they're like reverse werewolves. Like, instead of it being bad, they turn into wolves. I think it's bad, they turn human, and then they turn human under different circumstances. They're kind of like reversed werewolves, but I really like them. They're performed well, and again, you have the Valiard kind of setting up his trap with what's going on with some kind of machine, and how it ties in with one of it, which I can't remember if it's Charlie that's the companion here, because each story has a different companion. But this one I really liked. The Red House was really, really fun. It was a unique little spin on the werewolf story, which I really liked, and kind of turned the werewolf story on its head, and I found that really, really interesting. This one was really good. Next on the list is Stormfront with the 8th Doctor. Is this the first 8th Doctor story? I forget. I really like this. This is where he first meets... Is it Charlie? I get a lot of the Big Finish companions mixed up. And how she was supposed to have died in the airship, but he saves her. And I think that causes problems later in like Time Storm and stuff. I'm not quite sure. But I enjoyed this one. I wasn't even familiar with the airship. It took me a while to realize they were on an old school airship. And I didn't realize this was a real event, like the R1017 or whatever it was called. That really happened. This was really neat because it actually made me learn something about history, because I actually did get online and look up that story and read about it. And that was pretty cool. So it kind of taught me a neat little history lesson there. But yeah, with the aliens and everything going on there and all the covert stuff going on behind the scenes, Paul McGann's putting in a great performance. Charlie is putting in a great performance. I really, really enjoyed this one. It was a fun listen. So I definitely recommend Stormfront to people if they want some early 8th Doctor. Next on the list is The Wrong Doctors, which is a Colin Baker story where we have, is it 2 or 3? I just listened to this not too long ago, a few months ago. I can't remember if it's 2 or 3 Doctors running around. I think it's 2. Maybe there's a 3rd. And then we have a couple different Mels running around too, because we have the Doctor trying to drop Mel off right after Last of the Time Lord. Then we also have the Doctor first meeting Mel in his timeline. So we have 2 versions of the 6th Doctor, and I think there's a 3rd, actually. One of them's in the blue coat as well. Matter of fact, I think this is the story where we find out why he starts wearing his regular coat again, because Mel mentions liking it better, and he's like, I'll wear it again for you. It's really good. It's really good. I mean, more of Colin's not a bad thing, especially in Big Finish. The Big Finish has done such a lot to really grow the 6th Doctor and make him such a cool character, to where I really like the 6th Doctor a lot more now. And Colin is just so good in the role in Big Finish. Then I really enjoy this one. It's a lot of fun. And it's actually not as hard to keep up with which Doctor is which and which Mel is which. I didn't really struggle keeping up with them. It's like I could usually tell which one was which one and where they were in the timeline. I actually really enjoyed the Wrong Doctors. Next on the list is Out of Time Part 1, which of course is when the 10th Doctor and the 4th Doctor meet. This is a lot of fun, partially just because I love Tom Baker, and it's nice seeing Tom Baker interact with David Tennant, and of course Tom Baker being able to keep up with David Tennant. I love that bit when they're talking and the 4th Doctor finally goes, and I know who you are, and you aren't going to tell me. I love that. The fact the 4th Doctor knows exactly who the 10th Doctor is, the way he says it, and I know who you are. I love that. And then he has a speech about, when he's telling the 10th Doctor, and I will go on being me. Basically explaining to the 10th Doctor that just because we change our face doesn't mean we're a different person. It really is the classic interpretation of regeneration versus the modern interpretation of regeneration, where modern Who is almost more like he becomes a different person with the same memories, whereas classic Doctor Who he's the same person with a new body. So he's kind of explaining that to Ten, where, even if I don't look like this anymore, I will still go on being me. And I really, really liked that. I did watch this synced up with Josh Snare's animation. Man, hats off to Josh for that animation. It's fantastic. And having the visual aid to watch the story with was very, very enjoyable. I found it a lot of fun. It's always nice to see the Daleks back. And I like the idea of this little citadel outside of time the Doctor can visit whenever he wants. I really enjoy that. It's really fun. I need to give it another listen to sometime because I very much enjoyed it. Number 3 on the list is End of the Line, which is the first part of The Last Adventure and my personal favorite. I love the End of the Line. It just is atmospheric. It just is dripping with tension and atmosphere and trying to figure out what the heck is going on. It's very confusing when you're running into all of these different trains and alternate people and people dying in this mysterious fog. It sets up so much. Like, even though it's audio only, it's easy for me, the way they describe what's happening, for me to picture the events in my mind. And to be honest, the budget of the show, even the modern show, probably couldn't live up with what's in my head, what my imagination conjures up is going on, with like these platforms that stretch on, infinite trains. Some trains are wrecked, some are not. This ghostly, ghastly fog that you don't know what's in. When you don't know what's out to get you, you don't quite know what's going on. That and the Valiard basically bitch slaps the Master practically verbally, just kind of stop messing up what I got going on. I love, because the Master turns up and then the Valiard turns up and the Valiard just pretty much sends him packing, and I love that. How he's just, you are interfering in plans I have for the Doctor. Get out of here. I love that. I just love that so much. This one's really good. It's like the audio version of Ghostlight in a way, where it just has that tension, that atmosphere, and that feel to it that I just love. It just oozes out of it, and I absolutely love that. Coming in at the number 2 spot is the Chimes of Midnight. This one is a classic for a reason. I was glad I finally got to listen to this. I don't own it physically. I actually would love a physical copy of this because it is so good. It is so amazing. I absolutely loved it. Trying to figure out what is going on at this house, what is going on at these alternate times, how this person keeps dying and keeps dying in different ways. It's a mystery. It's this weird mystery that only Doctor Who could do. Because it's a mystery, but it's also a very sci-fi styled mystery. And just watching as this story unfolds and you find out what's going on and how the 8th Doctor is supposed to stop it. and how like they wipe something away and it comes back, or they knock something down and it comes back. It's so well written. It's so well written. The Eighth Doctor is great, and I forget who the companion is in this one, but they're great as well. I absolutely love how the story is trying to fold people in with it's. You have to listen to the Chimes of Midnight. I can't describe it to you. That's how good it is. It's one of those, it's like you just have to listen to it. I absolutely loved listening to this one. And number one, my favorite Big Finish story so far is the very first Big Finish story I ever listened to, and it's due a re-listen. I got to find my copy of it. I actually bought this. I was at a Second and Charles in Alabama, and they had a bunch of Big Finish stuff, and I wish I'd bought more, actually. And it was sealed. It had never been opened. I guess somebody traded in a collection, would be my guess, because there was a bunch of them sealed. So I basically got it brand new at a good price. And it was Jubilee was the first story I ever listened to. I'd always heard it was really good. I always knew that the writer also wrote Dalek, Robert Sherman, and that Dalek was kind of similar to this, although they're actually very different. It is definitely the story. If you ever want to find out just how awesome the Sixth Doctor is, Colin Baker is great in this. The companion, I forget who the companion is also great in this. The guest cast is good in this. I loved the setup for this story with a couple different versions of the Sixth Doctor. How the Doctor gets split to where there are these two realities that happened, and in one this happened and one this happened. It's brutal kind of what happened to the Doctor in one of them, and it has kind of this Big Brother 1984 set up in this one universe where the Doctor is revered as something he is not. They pretty much turned him into a poster child against stuff he wouldn't want, which it's so good. Jubilee does so much so well that you just have to listen to it. It is the Big Finish story. Chimes of Midnight and Jubilee are the Big Finish stories I feel like every Doctor Who fan needs to listen to, because they're just so well made, so well put together, so well performed. It's so good. I need to re-listen to it and do another review for it. I've got to find my copy of it. It's buried in there somewhere. So, I want to know what you think of these Big Finish stories and how you would rank them, and maybe some others you think I definitely need to check out, and if there are any you would like to send to me, I would definitely love to have that as well. I do have a P.O. box down there if there's anything you'd like to send down there. My Amazon wish list is down there. My Amazon UK wish list is also down there. I also want to give a shout out to a couple of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney and Stephen Crane. I appreciate their support as I do the support of all of my patrons. A link to my Patreon is also down there as well if you'd like to support me that way. Or I'd appreciate just if you click that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet. If you watch a lot, I do a new video every day. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. That helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. I certainly appreciate it. And don't forget to click the thumbs up button as well. Most importantly, thank you for watching.